Në episodin e 14 të podcastit flasim, kam të ftuar një britanik, anglez. Emri i tij është Karl Roberts. Ai ka ardhur në Shqipëri fillimisht si menaxher i projektit të madh të gasjellësit trans-adriatik dhe pasi ka mbaruar punën si menaxher, nuk është shkëputur dot më nga Shqipëria, sepse i ka ndodhur ajo që i ndodh përgjithsisht të gjithë atyre që vinë në Shqipëri, ka rënë në dashuri me Shqipërinë. It's fair to say you fall in love with Albania.
That's correct, yes.
So we will talk in English, but before I want you to say to me hello in Albanian.
Përshëndetje.
Good, very good.
Përshëndetje, Prime Minister.
Very good. Përshëndetje. And let's start with when was the first time you heard the name Albania?
The very first time was at school. And what really stuck out for me is there was a map of Europe, and all the different countries had different colours, and Albania was black. And I asked the question, why? And the answer was it was a closed country. That was the first time ever I'd heard about Albania.
And then what was your perception of Albania before you got to know that you had to come here?
I'd read about Albania. I knew about the history. I'm fascinated with history. So that interested me a lot. I've worked in the former Soviet Union, and because of the ties between Albania and Russia historically, I expected to see a Russian influence, which I did, but I also saw other influences, Italian. I saw the place was more active arriving in Tirana from the airport.
No, I'm asking before you knew that you would come to Albania,
okay.
How much you knew about Albania?
Well, that was about it, really. It was just what I read.
And then first time was when someone, I guess, told you that you have to go to manage the Trans-Adriatic pipeline, right?
That's correct. That's correct. I was based in Switzerland, and my boss said that he would like me to come to Albania. And
how you reacted?
With great, I welcomed it.
You welcomed it.
Why did I welcome it? Because Switzerland is Switzerland. It's a beautiful place, well organized. I've traveled the world, and I like places like Albania. So I was enthusiastic.
So what's wrong with Switzerland? Is boring? No. Is cold? Or is...
It was a little bit boring, to be honest.
Yes.
I arrived there on Sunday. Everything was closed at about 9 o'clock at night. I struggled to get a meal. Everything is too organized. It's a great place, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I know it's a great place, of course.
But I like places like Albania.
So you welcomed the
opportunity. Yes.
And then you arrived first time. What you expected to see, and what was the difference between what you expected and what you saw, or more or less what you saw, what you expected?
Like I said earlier, I was expecting to see the sort of Russian influence more than Albania sort of presented to me. I could see it was a developing country. I could see there was lots of activity, more so than I thought, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm.
And
what year was that when you?
That was 2015.
2015.
Yeah.
And then you saw Tirana. You started by establishing first in Tirana, right?
Correct.
And then you went to the south.
Yes. I mean, the first 12 months of the project was strengthening roads and bridges across, obviously, the width of Albania, to allow the construction work to commence, because obviously we were moving lots of heavy equipment and lots of pipes. I'd been in Albania about 2 weeks, and we then had to take the tenderers for the pipeline to show them the pipeline route. So I went from Belisht right the way Vithkuch, and then across to the other side, Potom, Cherevoda, right the way through to Fia. And that was a great introduction of life outside Tirana, because I see Tirana as obviously the capital and where the majority of people live. But I like to go to the rural areas and see how people really live. And there's a big contrast, as you know better than me.
True. Before going further, I wanted just to share with you the following. When I was elected 2013, one of the first meetings with international people coming to me, and in fact was not even here, but was before I entered office, if I'm not wrong, because we have this transition period. It was with representation of TAP. Some representatives of the shareholders coming, and they were quite, nervous, because they wanted to tell me, which made me nervous, that they were now in the phase of preparing to start the work, and they were worried about potential bureaucratic hurdles, about delays, about potentially difficult relation with the state, with the local governments, with the central government, and they were talking about how important it was to meet the deadlines. And they were explaining that they had to go through Turkey, Greece, Albania, and Italy, and more or less they were confident that everything would be fine with these other countries, but they were not very confident. They wanted reassurances that Albania would behave, because their mind was full of things that were not necessarily very good about the state performance and about corruption and all these things. I got nervous because the project was huge, and and their concerns were not unfounded. So that we created a team. We created what at that period in time, when we had to go through certain things, called the Black Belt team, to support the project by making sure that all the institutions went through this team, and the top team would not have to go to knock in different doors, and it worked very well. And some years after, they came again, and it was different meeting, it was different spirit, and it was even funny, because they said, Prime Minister, we came because we wanted to make sure that the not totally pleasant meeting we had to have with you in the very beginning had a follow-up. And in some ways we want to apologize for, a hard judgment or prejudgment or whatever. Because what we are experiencing is that in terms of bureaucracy, Albania is the easiest.
Yes.
With Turkey, not so easy. With Greece, even more complicated. With Italy, totally complicated. Albania played his role nicely. So it was very, very, flattering, and it was true, and I was proud of that. But taking it from here, how you felt, because you were a general manager, you had to follow all the angles. So
I think
you recognize the work in Albania in these words, right?
Yes. I think it was the fear of the unknown.
Yes, exactly.
But in reality, like you said, the team that you put together worked very, very closely. And we couldn't have done it without that team. So we got a lot of help and support. And yes, there's bureaucracy in every country. But it was, once we'd done one package, it was easy. And the good thing to me was the teamwork that we had. And the fact that you could, if you needed any advice or any help, I could go to the ministry, just knock on the door, and I was welcomed. So yes, it was a real pleasant surprise for everybody, like you say.
And then the work ended wonderfully, I believe, at least for what I know and for our part. With, by the way, a very interesting experience in property mapping and property retribution and all the process, which was very interesting because you know that we have these struggles with mapping, cadastre, properties, private, overlappings and all this, and this was really an impressive part. But then you had to go. And apparently you left, but you didn't really leave, no?
No, I didn't leave. But before I go on to that, there's one thing I would like to say about the project, because as well as the help that we received from the authorities, I was really, really impressed with the workforce that we got. Because when I put together the organisation that we needed from a construction point of view, and at first I thought we would have to bring lots of expats in country. I soon realised that was wrong, and we did a campaign to bring people into TAP, to show them what working for TAP would look like, and really ask them, do you really want to do this? Because some of the work in the field is hard, 12 plus hours a day. Throughout the year, we don't stop. And from that exercise, we got a team together that was one of the best teams that the whole length of the project had. And the shareholders recognised that. And the other thing I recall is that there was a construction manager from the contractor. He was older than me. He'd been around the world. And he said, some of the Albanians that are working for us, I would take anywhere in the world. So not only did we get the help from the government, we had the locals to support us. And that made our life a lot easier, because you don't have to bring people in, accommodate them. Expats always want to change things. If you treat a local with respect, tell him what to do, train him, he will do it. And that was proven.
Well paid, well insured, well protected.
Yeah, look after him, yeah.
And then?
Then, I mean, I decided I wanted to stay in Albania when I was working for TAP. So
really?
I invested in a property when I was still working for TAP.
This was, anyway, your last job in the company,
I knew
right?
it would be the end of my career.
Yes, in terms of active career.
Yeah, 40-odd years, working away from home, most of that career. Like I say, in various countries all throughout the world. So I decided that I would semi-retire, because I don't like the word retire.
Exactly. I did mention.
So I decided that Albania was the place. And why did I decide that?
But how many countries you have been?
I started off in Kazakhstan. I went to Kazakhstan in 1992. And I spent 12 years, not all in one go, but in 3 different projects. So a lot of my career was in Kazakhstan. And I saw it after the breakup of the Soviet Union. And I saw it after a lot of oil and gas investment. And that was a magical journey, both good and bad. I saw the good side and the bad side of putting money into a country. From there, I took the family, this was a good experience, to Singapore. It was a project offshore Burma, Myanmar, but we were based in Singapore, and then I moved the family to Burma. Now, Burma was under a military regime.
Yes.
very, very poor. We were restricted. Our telephones were tapped. You had to get permission not only to come in the country, but to leave the country. But what an experience, especially for my young girls. I've got two girls.
God bless them.
And they went from Singapore, where it's I want this, I want that, money, 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 to seeing real poverty, but in an environment where people looked after each other. So although they were suppressed, they were the most happiest people I've ever come across. I call it a real smile, and I call Singapore a plastic smile, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean, because during dictatorship here it was horrible, but we laughed a lot.
Yeah.
So people used to laugh a lot.
Yeah.
Laugh a lot. It was the only way to somehow escape the hell was through jokes.
Yeah.
And jokes were also the only way to kind of undermine the thing without really exposing yourself, and the laughter was a big consolation, and we laughed a lot. And everyone of at least of my circle, my generation, says we don't laugh anymore like we used to do.
Yeah, interesting, really interesting.
Yeah.
So from there, I went back to Kazakhstan for another project, and I saw the difference, like I mentioned. But then I went to Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, which again was a fascinating place.
A beautiful country, huh?
Beautiful country, small islands, small population, wealthy with oil and gas, and also like methanol, massive. In fact, it was the biggest methanol producer in the world. All the gas was exported to the States. But I still, when we were going to the field, which was really in a tropical environment, you'd see people washing themselves at the side of the road with from a cold water tap. They didn't have running water in the houses. And that's a real issue, that the country was wealthy, but it didn't flow down. And a similar thing in Kazakhstan, but not as bad. It was so obvious in Trinidad that there was this just huge divide for such a small island. But that was a great place. The family used to visit me for obvious reasons, so I had plenty of visits during the holidays. From there back to Kazakhstan, from Kazakhstan to Australia, which was a great project, massive project, and then from Australia to Albania.
So from all the nests you migrated, Albania was the one you picked to stay.
Yes.
And you invested in a property. What you did where?
It's an apartment near Teg.
Here?
Yes.
I mean, you are Tirana resident.
Yes.
If I can use this word.
Yes.
And you go back and forth in London?
I live in the southwest, a nice place, Devon, which is a couple of 100 kilometres from London. So it's a contrasting life. Having moved around, I find it hard to stay in one place. And the contrast between Albania, I've got a place here which is a new place. Back home, my house is 130 years old. With a big garden, so I don't have a garden here, but back there I do. And the contrast between the two keeps me active and keeps me entertained and occupied. For me to stay in one place, I would get very nervous.
And how you distribute the
It's roughly,
time?
I would say, 60% Albania, 40% in
your family. What they say? They say you are okay, or there is something wrong with you.
No, they love Albania. My two girls are grown up. One's in Australia, so obviously, she doesn't come to Albania. She's been many times, but obviously the distance prevents that. My other daughter is in Scotland, and it's interesting, really. I can get to Scotland quicker from Albania than I can from the southwest, because the southwest I would drive. It would take 8 hours. Here there's a flight to Edinburgh, and it takes me 4 hours, well, less, 3 hours.
3 hours and something.
Yeah, and then half an hour across to Glasgow. So my children, when they were children, or younger at least, have been out here and they love it. They love it.
They love it.
And so, I mean, all my family have been on more than one occasion. I'm like a tour guide to not just the family, but friends and the extended family. So I don't know anybody who's had a bad word for Albania, and that says a lot.
Yeah, it's true. But a common friend was telling me that you sometimes are not critical, but you sometimes are like, why Albanian people have to go to Britain?
Yes, yeah.
Can you explain this?
Yes and no. I prefer Albania to living in a city. Living in London, to me, doesn't interest me. I mean, the UK has a lot of challenges. It's not the grass is greener on the other side. I understand why people go. That's why you say yes or no.
That's why I'm saying it's not a criticism, but it's just like...
Yeah, but, unless you get a really well-paid job because of the taxation, because of the price of the housing, the quality of life, I think, is what you need to balance, not just that I can earn more in the UK. The other thing I see, if I go back to my childhood, I was brought up in the 60s in an industrial town near Manchester, 15 miles west of Manchester. But growing up, there was a family, a community around you. And like you said earlier, we had fun, even though, we didn't have lots of money. And I see those values, those family values in Albania. I don't see them in the UK now.
No, it's over.
In the UK, that's gone. People tend to move apart very quickly. They don't look after the family, certainly as well.
No, but also
the Albanians.
I think, I don't know much about Britain, but my feeling is that it's also not easy to have the same sense of community that it was once upon a time. It's much more distant. And I was in London last time to meet the Albanians, and the common, very common tale, and I'm talking about people that are well established, hard workers, that started just by trying to do everything, and now have family, have kids. And they were saying to me the same, saying, listen, you have to have 2 jobs.
Yes, yeah.
Otherwise, it's not possible. And of course, it's good in some ways for the kids, but it's not so good even for the kids. And the spare time with the family is zero. Yeah. So, but people. I had here people that came from immigration, and they say the same thing. When people see the wages from here, and they make the comparison, of course, it's big. But what is behind the wage in terms of rents, in terms of taxes, in terms of bills to pay, it's unbearable in Britain or wherever you want in Europe. So there is a balance to make, but still, I also understand people that they want to challenge themselves, and they want to win a challenge with life by trying where they think there are bigger opportunities, and this is normal. Yeah. And how is your time in terms of, let's say, how is a normal day of yours in Albania?
It varies, to be honest. The thing that I do in Albania, and not just Albania, I've got people all over the world that look for me for advice, and talking about young people that I've seen grow and the projects I've been working on. And here in Albania, it's the same. So I am doing consultancy work, but I'm not building anything other than people. What I want to try and do, I've had a great career, 40 odd years of projects. I want to try and give something back. And the best way to do that is to help people grow. And project management as a true profession in
professional.
Albania is something fairly new. So I'm doing all sorts of things like we've started a project academy with one company where we bring people and try and grow them through the experience of the company in parallel with academic project management training. So my life here in Albania is working part-time, if you like, but also I love traveling. I love traveling around Albania, and I don't get bored with it, because every time I go back a few years later, I see such changes. We made a trip quite recently from culture across country, and it was at the time of the year the trees were just turning, so the colours on the trees. But what impressed me, I'd done that trip before, but the roads had improved so much. So, like I say, travelling around is something that also interests me, both in Albania and also around so close to Italy.
Albania has a bless. It's very diverse in its small size. So I can pretend the historical record of the most consumed traveler in the country, because since I was the leader of the opposition, I traveled all over, and I don't know how many times I've visited every city, by no doubt, but also a lot of villages. And believe me, I continue to be surprised, because when I touch a new ground, there's always something diverse. So it's not the same landscape and then different communities, but it's different communities, different landscapes, and different colors, and different altitudes, and different biodiversity. It's incredible, and this is a big asset we have, and you are right. And then for people that come, usually they come now less, but at least until some years ago, the expectation was so low, and then they get mesmerized, and everything then become a love story. The daughters are coming often, or depends?
It depends. My youngest daughter, who lives in Scotland, I'm a grandfather, so she has a baby now 14 months old. But she came in June with the baby, so even my granddaughter's seen Albania. So but friends of friends. I mean, we were entertaining somebody that was a friend. It was the daughter of a friend, an old friend of my wife's, and she came over, and we were showing her around. So, like I say, I'm a sort of part-time tour guide.
If a young boy, Albanian, would come to you and say, "Karl, I need advice. I have some house and little land somewhere in a village, but I'm bored. I want to go to Britain. What's your advice?"
Think carefully. I think people need to do the research to really understand what that means. As we spoke earlier, your likely earnings in the UK and what value that would bring to you and your family. And I just see so much opportunity in Albania, and sure, you need money to exploit those opportunities. I mean, the UK is struggling right now on all sorts of fronts: economic, taxation, the health security is a big one, the health system. So although there's things that the UK have developed over the years, and Albania will follow, I'm sure, it's not the place I knew when I was in my youth. So I would think very carefully. I think a lot of Albanians don't believe in themselves and they don't believe in the country. Now, that's easy for a foreigner to say, especially, okay, I've had a good career. It's easy for me to say, but I just see the opportunities. A lot of them are being exploited. Tourism, for example, is a key one. And the tourism industry in the UK has gone mad on Albania. The reports that you read, the more flights, and it's just taken off.
Now we are on the map, and now new challenges, because we need to do everything to keep the balance between all the diversity and all that nature that is a strong reason, and the necessity to have more capacities. But also between the massive and the high end, so it's many challenges.
Yes, yeah.
But there is no doubt we are on the map. And by the way, you said they don't believe in themselves. No, Albanians believe in themselves, not easily until they can prove the contrary. They believe in the country. In terms of being a country being able to offer them what they think, and wrongly so, that they will get when they go abroad. Meaning that the fight is the fight. So without the fight, nor here, either abroad, either anywhere, you can't win. But the other thing is that it's still a pendulum that is on the side of, I want to leave because there is this thing on the pocket where I have to take it out, where you scroll and you have the great images of Britain, Germany, this and that, and then actors, and then models, and then cars, and then you say, this is there, I have to go there. But it's not so easy, because this is more a Photoshop than a reality of the daily life of an Albanian going there. But what strikes me, I understand, but what strikes me most is that all foreigners that come here, they are jubilant about security.
Yes.
They are jubilant about security. And when I share it with people, many people don't say, what are you talking about? Security in Albania and not in London and not in Berlin and not in Milan and not in Paris? Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel safer in Tirana than I would walking around London or Manchester, especially in the evenings.
In the evenings is, and everyone I meet here, they say, oh, I walked with my wife, midnight. Wow, it's something we are craving for, and it's not easy. It's not easy anymore anywhere in Europe. So Paris, Paris is complicated. In the evening, it's not easy. You have to find the ways, and you have to know where is the neighborhood and where to go, because it's not easy. Anyhow, it was an incredible pleasure, Karl. And if you want to add something else before I conclude, because it's the Albanian tradition, the last word to the guests. So if you want to add something else that you feel like we didn't touch or you didn't say?
No, I think we've covered most of the areas. I mean, I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity, because I think life is all about opportunities. That's what I tell the young people I'm trying to sort of mentor. So this was a great opportunity, and it is a fantastic country, and I'm just blessed that I ended up here, and it was my last project, and hopefully I'll stay in Albania a long time.
More you go in the mountains, more
Beautiful.
your lungs and your
Beautiful.
blood will be
Valbona,
energized.
Valbona,
And
Feth.
as we say in Albanian, I wish you 100 and more years to enjoy the life and to get back and give back whatever you deserve and whatever you think people deserve. Thank you very much.
Faleminderit.
Ky ishte Karl Roberts, një britanik I shqiptarizuar që jeton midis Shqipërisë dhe Britanisë dhe që mes Shqipërisë dhe Britanisë kohën më të madhe ja dedikon Shqipërisë.